Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar. I want to thank you for your patience. We haven't done a webinar in about a month. We've been they're very busy trying to release the latest version of FormsViewer, which is what we're talking about today. It's a cool, refreshing new stuff for your forms. So before we get started, let's just take a quick look at what we have done with FormsViewer over the last 3 or 4 months. So we have a new release out. We actually published this on April 30th. We updated it last night to fix a few minor issues with the release, nothing major. So the main benefit to this release, there's many of them. We've done a lot of things, but we're really working hard to finish the designer features so that you can create forms, design forms, edit your existing forms all within the browser without having to use Infopath Designer. And our goal is to have that 95% there by the end of the year. Right now it's probably about 40–50%. I'm going to talk to you and show you a couple of the things we've done in our webinar today. So that's 3.1. We're also going to feature a few of the commands that we added. The prompt command is especially useful, and that is the main focus for today. The cool commands I'm going to talk about are these 4 commands, these 4 things. We're going to show you how to drag files and photos in your forms. That's actually now supported by default. You don't have to do anything to get that. We're going to show you how to add prompts to your forms. I'm going to do a quick demo. This is really useful. In fact, if I were to pick one of these 4 techniques today as being my number 1, I would say this one, but maybe the overlays. The overlays really look good. They're a little bit more difficult to add. The prompt command is really easy, but the overlays, we have a document on it. It's a 4 or 5 page document. We featured this in our training class last month, and we're going to do training again in a couple weeks. So if you're interested in this technique, I highly recommend it. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to add, and I'll demo this in a second. And then finally, I'll show you one of the designer changes we made, and I misspelled designer here, to the FormsViewer Design tab. We now have the ability for you to add data connections and edit them for SharePoint. So without any further ado, I'm going to switch to my demo and go through this stuff with you. We've been using this expense report form now for quite a while, and this is our form that we use in our training. We've been modifying it to make it sort of have all the cool stuff that you'd expect in a form. And here we go. So I'm going to open the form up. And for those of you who are not familiar with FormsViewer as much yet, we have the ability in FormsViewer to change the width of the form based on the size of the screen. Particularly useful when you're dealing with mobile devices, which can be high dots per inch. They can be very high resolution. And of course, I believe that we can jack this up a little bit here too, so we can change the font size so it's easier for you to see. So we're going to create an expense, and to show these new features, I'm just going to create a test expense and morning meeting with customer, we'll say. And we're going to go to Starbucks, and we're going to get a coffee. And so it's pretty simple, right? I've got a receipt here that I'm going to add to my expense report. And once again, I can click on here, or I can just drag and drop it. So let's take a look at the new feature. So here's my receipt. So let's just take a look at this receipt and zoom in on it. So here you can see that it's a Starbucks receipt, Pike Place. It's a stock receipt. I just pulled this off of Google. I didn't actually go to Starbucks this morning. But it's very similar to what you'd see if you were going to Starbucks in Seattle. So we're just going to drag this into our form like that. And that's how easy it is now with the drag and drop. You don't need to hunt and peck, find things on your local machine. You can just drag and drop stuff from your desktop. And the amount, I think it was $378. And okay, so I'm done with my form. Now I'm going to submit it. When I submit it, we have the new pop-up now. We have this new prompt, which is, for whatever reason, we're calling this warning. We can change that, obviously, but we have this final submit. Are you sure? Final, yes, no. No, it takes us back to the form. Yes, it submits it. And more importantly, at the very end, it's going to prompt us again and tell us that the form has been submitted. And so these are demoing the first and the second techniques. This is another pop-up here, form is successfully submitted. Now before, when we showed this icon, it looked quite a bit different. In fact, let me show you what it looked like before. It looked like this. So you'd see a pop-up at the very top of your window with an OK. This is very confusing, you know, qfs.formsco.com, okay, whatever. Provider hosted app, they're all going to have URLs like that, just like Microsoft Flow. But it's confusing. And so now we have this ability for you to customize that. And I recommend using these prompt commands. They're very easy to add. I'll show you how to add them in a second. But that's the first and the second part of the demo. And then, of course, it takes us back to the library as we would expect. Now, as part of this expense report submit process, you can see I did it twice here. I demoed it before the demo, testing it, and then this is the one I just added. The form has Flow behind it, so we have a Microsoft Flow that's going to send an email to me. And if I go to my email now, you'll see that it came in from Kirby. Kirby is the one that, oops, this is the wrong one. I have to wait for a minute before the flow kicks. But I should, in a minute here, get, there it is, get an email. Now, we need to change this so that it doesn't come from her account, but she set it up, so it's coming from her account. So you can just ignore that for now. Here's the expense report coming in. I have the ability to view the PDF. Now, one of the things we have demoed in the past is the ability to generate the PDF on the fly, save it to a document library as a record copy of the submit. And here you see the PDF that's been generated in that document library. I think it's expense report attachments here. And so it's exactly what we entered. And so that's a nice feature. I'm not really talking about that today, but just for those of you who are interested. And I can do a one-click approval. So let's actually approve it with text. So one of the other cool little things we do with FormsViewer is you can actually integrate with SMS verification for people who are external. They're not logged in. This is nice for people on the go. They've got their phone with them, but they don't, they don't have a, they don't want to log in. They don't want to type because they're driving or whatever. So we're going to, we have the SMS Qdabra has sent me I think I have 90 seconds to do this. So, but before I show you this, I want to actually show you this other thing. So look at the receipt, it has a link on it now. And if I click on that, we're going to see the overlay technique. Now this is very cool because not only are you seeing the overlay with the form in the background, but you're also seeing the OCR text. So it actually is able to call off to Google image processing, take that image that we gave him, I gave the form, put in the form, and run optical character recognition on the image to generate that text, which can be now searched. So this is not very useful for receipts like this, but if you've got a large document, it is very useful. Now, before that confirmation code expires, I need to enter it here. So I'm going to enter my code. I just got it on my phone, just via text here. I'm going to enter my 4-digit code and confirm that this is approved. Okay, so that's the end of the short demo here. You can see it's approved now. Let's take a look at the form. First of all, any questions on the demo? We actually have a quick poll question for you. So while you're thinking about that, I have another question for you, which is, do you use pop-ups currently in your form? In the Infopath Designer today, you can add pop-ups for the filler form, not for browser. So some of you may be thinking, well, I can't do it because I'm in the browser. But actually, FormsViewer supports it. So if you've got your form in the Designer, just switch it to filler, Infopath filler compatibility. And then, of course, you can access that pop-up. Unfortunately, the pop-up isn't very useful, and that's what we're trying to replace today with this prompt command. So it looks like most of you are not using it, about 67%. So we'll close that down. I'm going to, so I don't think we have any questions, but if you have questions, you can throw those into the chat window. I'm going to show you how we did this both the overlay and the prompt. So here's the form in the designer. Oh, I forgot. There's one more demo I want to show you, and that is take a look before I do the next demo. Take a look at this resources tab on the right here. You can see that I've got this location field ID, phone number, so on. We're pulling data in from a resource list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this, and oops, I didn't mean to hit help. I'm going to close this and show the last part of my demo, which I forgot to do a moment ago. And that is that we can now add and modify connections in the FormsViewer designer. So before I do modify the connection, though, what I want to do is I want to add a column to our resources list. So we have all of our team members in this resources list, and I'm just going to create a column for birthday, and I'll just add it for a few. Just call it birth date. I believe that's one word. It's a date though, just going to hit OK here. So I've added a column to my list, and I'll go into my, I don't know if I remember everyone's birthday, so I'm just going to add my birthday, and just click on items and edit. And of course, this is just the stock, I believe this is the stock list here, and you can see that it's been modified with Infopath, so it's not showing that. We can actually get list forms to work in FormsViewer just fine. Oops, I didn't want to leave that. What do I want to do here? Close. And let's see if I can do a quick edit. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to the birth date and add my birth date and hit, hopefully at the top here, I've got the stop editing. Okay, great. So, and I don't think I need to add the date because it should still show the column. But we have this new feature now in FormsViewer, which is, if we go to FormsViewer now, I've got this, my expense report here, and I can click on design, and the design has a bunch of new tabs. So in 3.1, we've added rule editor. Actually, that was already there, but we've added manage connections and manage resources. So in the manage connections tab, I can actually modify SharePoint, my SharePoint connections. So one of those connections is resources. And you can see here that that birth date is now showing, and I can add it to my form. When I do that and download the new form, it will have the birth date in it. Now we're still using the Infopath designer to modify the layout. So if I wanted to add that birth date to my view, I'd have to download it like this. And of course, it's going to try to launch an Infopath. I'm just going to ignore that and look at the form in the downloads folder and right-click it and show you that that field got added. So for simple changes to resource files or to data connections, you can do that in the designer. One of the really cool features that doesn't require any Infopath designer today is the ability to take your existing form and actually make it mobile friendly. So you can add a resource file, a style sheet, and add the command to load it all without going into the designer. And I've demoed that before, but if people are interested, I can do that again. So here's the new form I just downloaded with the resources data connection, and that now has the birth date in it. So that's the end of my demos. Now let's take a look. I've got one question here, I think. Maybe it's a comment. And Alan wants me to zoom in. Sorry, Alan. Yeah, so I'm just using my stock. I guess which screen did you not see? I can definitely do some zooming in though. Let me just do that real quick here. I've got a program that allows me to zoom in, and I know those of you who have 4K monitors, it might be difficult to see all this, right? Okay, so now we should have zoom in. Okay, so there's the birthday right there in the data connection. And I'll try to zoom in on the other stuff too. Thanks for that, calling that out, Alan. So in this form here, we've got, as you can see, it's just a stock Infopath form, but it has this submit button here. And on the submit button, we've got rules, and one of those rules that we've added is this prompt rule. And so for the submit, actually for the prompt, we got quite a few rules on here. So we're doing a lot of validation and things like that. I'm just going to ignore most of that, but I wanted to show this one command here, which is the prompt message, because this is how easy it is to add those prompts now. And this is really where we need zoom, obviously. Thanks, Alan, again. So we just had this new command. You can actually just add a rule with the command. So you're setting curls command equal to prompt, and there's the title. So if we want to change it from warning to something better, we could do that. Let's do it. Attention. Make sure we spell it correctly. And then we have the text, and then we have it's a yes/no type of question, and there's some other stuff in there. So now I can save this and upload it. I'm just going to save it to my folder for today's webinar. Overwrite the one that's there. And then, of course, one of the benefits of FormsViewer is this ability to quickly drag and drop updates. So we can just we can click on the icon, or we can just drag and drop this over and update it. And of course, we have to run through the. Let's see, why is that the case? Why did it not update the version? Maybe we forgot to save it. Save. To make sure that you're doing this correctly. Let's try that. Okay, must have forgotten to save it. Nope, it's still giving me the same error. But that's how easy you update it. And then if I can overwrite this, upload anyway, and then I can open it up and we can see the new prompt. So the prompt command is really as simple as that. You're just setting the curls command equal to prompt. Now, the curls data source can be added via the browser. You don't need to use the injector anymore. So let's just add another simple test, another test. And I'm actually not going to even add a receipt for this one. I'm just going to say Uber or something, taxi. I want to see if the prompt was correctly updated. And there it is. So it's attention. So we just made that change. I'm not going to save this one though. That's how easy it is. Once again, if you're doing this on your own, you're going to go into your form. You're going to add a rule, and you're going to set the command. So the command is that node in your curls data source. And once again, if you don't have curls in your form, what are you going to do? You're going to go into Forms Designer. So we're going to go into the Form Designer here, and you can actually inject curls on the Command Builder tab. This one already has it. You can also search for the command prompt on the Command Builder, and it will tell you what to do. So you can actually go in and you can say, I want the title to be attention, and I want the text to be, please confirm that you want to save, submit. And of course, then we can change this, and you can see it's creating that command at the bottom, and I can copy this into the clipboard and just add it to the designer. You could also add it via the rule editor. You don't need to go into the Infopath designer to add this command. So in the rule editor, you would find the view that you're on, and then you'd find the button. Let's see here, am I on the right view? I think I might have to refresh this because I uploaded a new template. And I forgot to upload this. I don't think I uploaded this. I think I refreshed this page. Let's try this again with the. There we go. So this submit button here has all these commands. You can see they're all here as well. So you don't need to go into the designer to change this command. You can just go in here, and we can just change it from here. And you can see there's the command down there. I can add an exclamation mark to this at the end and save it. save changes. It's one character change there, and let's see if that does the same trick. So you can inject key rules from the designer. You can add rules from the designer now. You don't need to be in the Infopath designer. The main point of the Infopath designer is still required though, because you're going to be adding layout changes and whatnot. So let's go back and open up, create one more expense report, and just verify that that change was made from the FormsViewer designer, not Infopath designer. Once again, just added the exclamation mark, so it's one more test. And there you see that exclamation mark being added. So that's how easy it is to change it for the prompt command. And once again, the prompt command is really easy to use. So definitely it's great because you want to get input from your users, and there's really no way to do it today. You can actually go into your form and you can add view logic, hide show sections to get input from your users. But the prompt command is a much easier way to do that. And the prompt command has quite a few different options on it. Recommend that you take a look at the command builder tab again. Let's see if I can get back to the design tab here, because it has a lot of options. You can do a yes/no question. You can do a question with cancel button, OK button, yes, no, OK, and cancel. So there's a couple different varieties. It's pretty simple though, but it's great to use because you can quickly get users yes, no, OK, cancel, whatever, and incorporate that into the form. Okay, so that's the prompt question. That's the prompt. Now for the drag and drop, you don't need to do anything. It's just going to automatically be supported for any file attachment or photo image. Now let's talk about overlays. So overlays are definitely a more beautiful way to show a pop-up, but they're a little more involved. So let's take a look at the document we have. So we've actually created a lab on this. We demoed it in our training last month, and we have this lab on how to add overlay. We have a sample expense report form, and we have a start and a finish. So you can actually take this. We're going to include this in the webinar package today. You can take the sample form and you can apply the overlay, and then you can publish it on your site, and then you can compare it to the result that we have, just in case something goes wrong. So this is a little bit more involved, and specifically you're going to have to go in, edit the XSL file, and it's not too hard. We had one of our junior testers and support leads, our support person, do this. It took her an hour or so to do it, so it wasn't too difficult, but there are a few gotchas in here. We're going to be covering this in the class that we do, not next week but the following week. We're starting on Tuesday. I think it's the 22nd, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But that's the overlay. Now the overlay, once again, gives you that overlay with the background being the form, and so it's like a pop-up, but you can add more detail. So you can customize and theme the buttons. It's going to use the default CSS that you're using for your form, and you may need to change that. So it's just a much more beautiful option. And if we take a look, once again, what we're looking at here is the overlay. So if we go back to our form that we submitted and click on the receipt, the overlay is being used for that link on the receipt. So this is the approved form. I should still be able to see the receipt here, and there's the overlay. You can see that the button near the Show OCR button is the same as the ones in the background. So we have another question from Shane. Does the prompt command still need to be done in the filler version when designing? No. So that's the difference now, is we're not using the stock Infopath filler prompt command. We're using the QRules command prompt, which means that you can still leave it in the browser mode. You don't need to go to filler compatibility. I was just saying earlier that if you have done the prompting in the past using the filler, that will work in FormsViewer, but it's not going to give you all those options that we provide using the QRules command. So hopefully that answers that question. So once again, back to the overlay then, you can see that this is a much more stylized pop-up than what we just saw. it allows us to switch back and forth between these two different views. And so that's what the overlay is. The overlay gives you that. And we do a lot of overlays these days. They're very popular with our customers. And questions on that, take a look at the PDF, go to the class in a couple weeks. We'll walk you through it. You can add it to your form. It'll definitely look good. And it's very fast. So then finally, I showed how to add a data connection, how to update a data connection that we're pulling in list columns from our resources list. And you can do that all in the browser now. So that's it for the demos today. I want to just quickly call out that we're going to try to get back on the webinar regular schedule here, weekly schedule. And next week, I'm hoping to show you how we can modify modern libraries with FormsViewer. So currently, FormsViewer works with classic themed Office 365 libraries. We have had several customers ask us about, well, when are you going to get modern? And we have done some work on it. We didn't get it into 3.1. We wanted to, but we just didn't make it in time. So we're pushing it out to the next release. The next release, 3.2, will be beginning of July, hopefully. We may have a few dot releases, minor updates between now and then if there's issues that we need to fix or bugs that Microsoft causes. But the modern library stuff should be in July, and you don't need an update from FormsViewer to do this. So we'll show you how to configure a modern library to open forms in FormsViewer using column properties. Hopefully next week, May 17th. And then the following week, we're finally going to do this syndication for list forms. Shane, this is obviously your inspiration here. And we've have a new tool that allows you to automatically create lists and libraries for subsites. If you are not sure what this even means, take a look at the last webinar we did on April, I believe it's April 10th or so. We did a webinar on how to make your forms portable. So FormsViewer allows you to create one form and to syndicate it across multiple subsites. And that form can also be a list form. And we're going to show you how to do that with list forms. The cool thing about this next demo is the ability to automatically create those lists and libraries on those subsites. So most of the time, what we showed in April was, well, if you've already got those sites, here's how you update it. You update it in one place, and all of the subsites use that one location centralized, so it saves you a ton of time. What we're going to show in 2 weeks is how to automatically publish and create subsites and lists when you have multiple customers that need to see different lists, different libraries, but you want to use one form for all of them. So hopefully that explains that. So we do have this quick little video to end with here. We are talking about FormsViewer as a migration option. You've planted these nuts, you've made this investment. We're making good on Microsoft's promise to allow you to keep using that investment. And we're also showing you these new features. So we've got a lot of new features. We've showed, in my demo today, I showed how to, I showed the modernized layout, but I didn't show you. We've done demos on how to add a CSS to your form to make it look good on mobile. So that's one of the new features. We also have the support for extracting and repeating data to lists. The form that I demoed actually has that built into it. And if I go up to the site here, I can get to the expense report list items, and we can see that it is extracting that repeating data to this list. Well, that's interesting. I don't have access to that. You'd think I would. So I didn't mean to, sorry, I didn't mean to diverge like that, but we do have support for mapping, and you can do that all in the FormsViewer Designer. You do not need to inject with QRules and go through the process of building the mapping with the QRules injector. You can do that all in the browser now. You can extract attachments to a library. We actually did that in the demo today behind the scenes to show you that PDF, but also that image for the receipt was extracted to the same library. We have one-click approvals. You saw that demoed. And then we've got these advanced features, like you can call Google image recognition to do OCR, optical character recognition, so that your documents are more searchable. You can incorporate SMS text with your forms so that people who are on the go that don't have a login can still use their phone to authenticate. We have pop-up overlays, we have dashboards, we have lots of stuff. You can extend your forms, make them relevant in today's world. Okay, that's it for my quick demo and presentation. Do you have any questions for me? And it looks like Alan, you had a comment. You've used a prompt. I've used a prompt by having it switch to a prompt message view. Right, so that's the way we used to do it, was using view logic to switch to another view and then capture the input. And that's definitely a valid way to do it. It's just a little more work. So if you have something really simple you want to gather from the user, like, are you sure you want to do this? Highly recommend to use that new prompt command. And yeah, it's a pain to do it in the view. I recommend using the new prompt command for the simple stuff. If you've got something really complex that you need to prompt them with, then I would recommend using the approach you've been using. But for simple questions, I think the new prompt is great. Let's see, Mark's got a question. Does the FormsViewer Designer support SQL data connections? Yes, it does. There are two commands in FormsViewer that you can use to access SQL directly. Of course, I do recommend, and I know you have the web service, the SQL XML SQL web service that we have been using with customers for now over 10 years, DBXL. That's a huge boon in your environment. But you can also directly go via QRules. And the command you're going to want to use, there's two commands. You'll want to, I think it's called make request and execute request. So the make request allows you to go directly to SQL. I'm trying to think, did I have the right command here? I think that you have to set this up. Here, there it is. It's modify SQL query. So I'm wrong. So it's modify SQL query and execute. I think it's execute SQL query. So those two commands, you can just look at the command builder in FormsViewer and you can get some intel on those. They will require a managed credential. For those of you who aren't sure what I'm talking about, you will need to add a credential to access SQL. And the way you do that is you go back to your FormsViewer main page and you can click on Manage Credentials and you can add a credential there. It'll be hard-coded. Obviously, it's our Manage Credentials page is completely encrypted and everything. But and I don't know if I have any credentials on this one. I guess I do. So we're actually doing a direct call to FormsBoard using DBXL, but I don't know if I have one that's going directly to SQL or not. But yeah, that's a great question, Mark. So take a look at those two commands, modify SQL query and then execute, and those will go directly to your Azure SQL with some setup. And we do have customers using those today on-prem. I don't know if we have anybody using these with Azure yet, although we've had several people talk to us about it. We probably have one or two customers that's doing it. So anyway, you can build this up. You will need to specify the data source name and the where clause, which is a SQL command, and then I don't know what this detect name thing is. SQL data source model node name. Okay, so there's some extra features in here. But once again, take a look at this. If you have questions, let us know. Thanks for the question. And Alan, great to have you here. Thanks again for that comment. Totally agree about prompts. Excellent inclusion. Yeah, I appreciate your support. And we are here to continue pushing the technology forward with FormsViewer. Obviously, we've got the training in 2 weeks. It's 5/22, not 5/1. I highly recommend that you register for the class. We do have 5 people registered. We need a couple more people to make it real. So if you haven't been to the FormsViewer training, please do register, and we'll do the training in about 10 days, or 12 days, as the case may be. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and thanks for being here. We'll get this webinar up to YouTube and send out the webinar package. Very short 4-question survey for you to fill out to get that webinar package, and appreciate your time. Hope you have a great one. Talk to you again soon.